What's up, folks? This is Dan from Discern. Welcome to episode number 5 of the Discern Recap, where I go over some great new albums, new EPs, singles, any music that falls under the broad category of Christian music. This show releases every Monday, except this week. Real busy weekend. Lots of new music came out too. Lots of good music. Stuff to wade through. Try to find the recommendation. There's a lot of good stuff. So if you want to make sure you don't miss any new episodes when they come out on Mondays or Tuesday, Wednesday, be sure to subscribe. If you want to get involved in the show, you can comment below. You can tweet at me at discernreviews. You can email me discernreviews@gmail.com. Reach out. Let me know, what albums have you been enjoying recently? What other albums do you want to hear about on the show? Let's kick it off with recommendation number 1, Adam Young, Apollo 11. This is a film score, soundtrack, instrumental type album. Adam Young, as you probably know from Owl City fame, or if you're into more underground music, know him from his other projects like Sky Sailing and Port Blue, Swimming with Dolphins, many others. This album here is his first in a new project that Adam has started called Adam Young Scores. Pretty straightforward name. It's Adam Young writing scores, and he says this aspect of music, this composition side, has always been a big influence on him, and so he's started writing a score per month for as long as he chooses to do it. And it's a passion project, he says, possibly with motives to lead to bigger gigs and opportunities. At least that's the way I sort of interpret it. But at this point, he's just making music because he wants to. Gosh dang it. So I think that's a brilliant idea for someone like him who's been trudging around in the corporate label, top-down world of pop music. He's doing what he wants with his music. So let's dive into the music here. This album is centered around the well-known historical event of the Apollo 11 mission, where Neil Armstrong, Michael Collins, Buzz Aldrin, they became the first people to successfully go to the moon and back. And this soundtrack starts with liftoff and ends with the 3 astronauts splashing back to Earth. Each song is a moment in that journey. And just like the scene, or a scene in a movie, Adam crafts a score for each scene. Adam, I think he really, on this record as a whole, has his finger on the pulse of modern composing, or at least for film, like he's emulating here on this album. He hits all the notes you would expect. He shows you he's got the chops, he's got the understanding, he's got the basics down. But he employs too this unique palette of tones throughout the album, mostly featuring like a low meaty guitar, or it could be a bass or a baritone guitar. It's something rich and dark, often distorted too, and it's a sound that's easy to pinpoint and recognize as it pops up here and there, and it keeps the whole score more unified, but in a really distinct and unforgettable way. And I was really impressed too on this album of how emotionally and engaging and lively the compositions are. You know, I felt like the scenes were developing right there in my mind. You know, the score was so narratively purposeful and on point. I thought he nailed the setting, he nailed the tone for each song. All you need pretty much is that name, which gives you a clear enough understanding of the scene, and he takes it from there. I actually found myself too on Wikipedia while listening, reading to better flesh out the details of the history, the events on which the album's based. And everything I was reading, you know, to everything I was imagining, was so artfully cradled by the soundtrack. It just fits so well. And there's not even a film here. He did not write this with an existing film or a film to be coming out. This is all, you know, something he just pulled together by combining history and his imagination. It's absolutely brilliant. But here's the thing, I do have to be honest, I don't think I would have been so blown away by it if this album had come out from a well-known composer. The fact that this is from Adam Young, who is a very talented, very active musician, is such a welcome surprise, because I was so incredibly annoyed at what Owl City had become. And I loved it from the start. I even loved it when Ocean Eyes came out, but it went so downhill from there, and I could not stand the most recent album. So seeing Adam Young, who I know has made inspiring, passionate, inventive music before, seeing him make something like this, finally, it's a fantastic collection of music. I'm very excited to see where this leads Adam. I really hope he does end up scoring an actual film, because based on this album, I think he would absolutely crush it. I can't wait to see what he has in store for next month, and I'm just blown away by how this album turned out, given how unique it even is in concept. Yeah, really looking forward to more Adam Young scores. 3 tracks to get you started as you dive in. CSM LM docking, which I think is like control module, lunar module, command module, something like that. Fancy terms. Lunar landing, and Mare Tranquillatis, which is Latin for Sea of Tranquility. And no, I am not that smart. I looked it up. So let's move on. Second recommendation. Rival Choir with their album I Believe, Help My Unbelief. This is a metalcore, hardcore album. Rival Choir, formerly known as Mouth of the South. They're a band from Texas, and this here is their debut as Rival Choir. Previously, they have released a handful of other albums and EPs, mostly independently. But they joined the label Face Down Records back in 2014, and this here is their second release with that label. This album really surprised me, because when I listen to hardcore music, I usually enjoy the balance between the harsh, dark verses and the brighter, open choruses. So the screaming contrasted with the singing, and it's like salty and sweet. They both go together well. But you can be too sweet and you can be too salty. This album is heavy on the salty side. That is to say, it's a hefty dose of dark, brash, screaming vocals, slamming, crashing instrumentals. But I love it. Firstly, it sounds excellent. The vocals are constantly on the verge of distortion, teetering on the edge, just a little bite to them. The instruments are like one big rhythm section. There isn't a lot of over-the-top breakdowns or gaudy solos. It's just a unified rhythmic implosion. The backbone of their sound, honestly, is this oneness that they have. It's not like some hardcore acts where you mostly just listen to the vocals, or you find yourself drawn to the drums or to the guitars. This is just a unified whole that ebbs and flows well together. Their sound is, it's gritty, it's dark, it's just the perfect chaser for a pop album. Rub some dirt in your ears. Second reason I like them, I was so drawn to this record on a lyrical front, because this album is thematically struggling for air. The desperation here is palpable. It starts with the title, obviously, and it carries down to almost every line. The entire thing is full of despair and guilt and filth and honesty. It's a state we find ourselves all in, and some more than others. Bottom of the barrel levels of self-hate and confusion, wondering, why do we fall into these cycles of sin? What do I actually believe? Who am I at heart? We go round and round and round, and we never seem to win or to conquer our sin. And as you listen to song after song, you feel more and more crushed and stifled, the air getting squeezed out of your lungs, and the only little bit of hope you have is a desperate plea for help. There's hope there, but that it's almost passionless. It's hard to believe there's hope when you've trodden the same sinful path time and time again. But even though the album doesn't come out and lay a clear path to escape this despair, it more ends still on that plea of God, I believe, please help my unbelief, which I think is the point of the album. It's meant for those moments. Sometimes that can last years of holding on and saying, please, God, help me. In light of that, though, here's the facts. Paul, in the book of 1 Timothy, says, the saying is trustworthy and deserving of full acceptance, that Christ Jesus came into the world to save sinners, of whom I am the foremost. Paul knew a thing or two about being a vile sinner. Christ came to save sinners, so don't lose hope. Check this album out, but don't forget the gospel. Christ died for the ungodly, and that's just like you, and that's just like me. So before I move on, I'll put a link in the description to the lyrics posted by the band on their website. Super helpful, considering how hard it can be to clearly interpret what's being said in this type of music. So, link below, check it out. Third recommendation, Reconcile with the single Problems, featuring Tyshane. Reconcile is a rapper, sort of in the vein of southern rap, trap, from Florida, who I think resides in Texas now. His roots in his hometown are in Florida. He's on the label Track or Die. His most recent release was the Catchin' Bodies EP just a few months ago in September of last year. As with previous releases from Reconcile, there's a significant amount of that auto-tune warble on Reconcile's vocals. Not my favorite, but it doesn't ruin the song or anything. Pretty good production here, produced by D.O. Speaks and Tyshane, who have both been on production for Reconcile in the past. Not super flashy, a little relaxed, but still has a weight to it. There's like a xylophone, marimba sort of sound that comes in at different times that I think really encapsulates the vibe of the instrumental as a whole. What struck me most about this track was the type of problems Reconcile and Tyshane speak about. Getting placed in a state penitentiary, or feeling pulled to sell cocaine to feed your kids. I think sometimes we boil down problems into first world problems, especially as Christians, Christian problems, or we think of them as proper problems. I'm still looking for a job, I'm not in the Word enough, a family member of mine is sick. These are real problems, but in a totally different realm than some of the problems on this track. Sometimes we think, oh, no Christian struggles with things like that. But honestly, there are Christians in prison, justly or unjustly, as he puts it, problems behind the gate, but still holding on to faith. There are Christians who come out of a background of selling cocaine. There are Christians who fight gritty, weighty problems that I barely have a reference for. And so for that reason, I think that's why I like this track. It brought to light some of these problems in particular, problems that real Christians face. And I thought it was just insightful and eye-opening. So, good track from Reconcile there. Go check it out. And my last recommendation, Tyson Motsenbocker with the single Can't Come Home Again. Tyson Motsenbocker is a singer-songwriter from California. When he does more full band sound stuff, he kind of is in the vein of indie rock, alternative. He was originally born in Washington, now living in California. You can really feel his music has like a coastal vibe to it. It's casual, easygoing. This track, Can't Come Home Again, has a welcome warmth and a glow, from the smooth rhythms and the bass and the drums to the light vocal delivery from Tyson. And I think really the sound really mirrors the dreamy longing for home that the lyrics bring out. I think it's a very relatable feeling that certain things, even things as basic as the seasons or being out on the road, remind us of our homes, or places that feel like home. Familiarity, comfort, security, wherever that may be, and honestly, whatever that may be. I mean, home could be a place or a past relationship, an event. But he's saying if and when you go back home, if that's even possible, it's not the same. The experiences can't be fully recreated. They happened in the past and they can't come back. And that's a frustrating feeling to reconcile. You miss that original feeling. You try to chase it, but it's impossible to recreate. I really liked how the song kept saying, you come back home again. Sort of in the chorus, he would say that until toward the end of the song, when he starts saying with a growing intensity, you can't come home again. You know, as he says in the song, it's not the same. I looked up some backstory stuff on Tyson and learned that his mother actually died just 3 years ago. And in the memory of her, he walked a 600-mile stretch of coastland in California to San Francisco. And I think knowing that fact about his life sheds a new light on this song and what it means to come home or be unable to truly come back to what you remember as home. You know, home as he knew it with his mother is gone. He can't come back to that. So I'm very interested to see with this track and the broader context, seeing what his upcoming album, which will be his debut full length, seeing, you know, what it will contain, how this track will relate to the others in that full context. Before I wrap up here, I do want to mention Anchor and Braille, Songs for the Late Night Drive Home. That album just came out. I mentioned a single from it last week. The reason it's not on my recommendations this week, it's not a terrible album by any means. It's a pretty good album. But it was not one of my favorites. Roughly, here's why. Great singles on this album, best on the album. I think they're the best songs he has on this record. But this record is just a collection of songs. You know, you can kind of get that from the title too. Songs for the Late Night Drive Home. It just feels like a collection of songs. But there's not a whole broader context that any of these songs fit into. And so when you're looking at each song individually, I think that's when you really start to notice how one-dimensional this whole record is. There's not a whole lot of variance between the tracks. It's just kind of straight, consistent, which I think for some people within chill wave really, really dig that. So that may be your thing. I also thought the album too was just it wasn't deep enough. There wasn't, I didn't learn anything about, or I didn't feel like I learned anything about Stephen Christian as an artist, as a person. He didn't make me stop and think about anything in the world or in, just in the broader context of where this album sits. It just felt isolated. It felt like I couldn't tie it to anything in my life or in the real world. And so if you're just looking at these as direct, single, isolated songs, I don't think they hold up that well, except for the singles. I love those, and I think those do hold up well, because they hold up as singles should, well in isolated context, you know. So anyway, if that's your thing, check it out. It is a good album, I think, just not my favorite, so that's why I didn't have a whole lot to say about it. Anyway, that is all I have for you this week. Thank you for watching the Discern Recap. Please subscribe if you like this content. It's coming to you every Monday, when possible. If you have a particular album that you have been enjoying, let me know. I love discovering new music. I love discovering things that you're listening to, growing this community. Did you listen to any of the songs I mentioned? What did you think of them? Did you listen to any of these albums? You can comment below. You have to comment below. You can tweet at me at discernreviews. You can send me an email, discernreviews@gmail.com. Whatever you want to do, just reach out and get involved. Anyway, hope this helped. See ya.